Hi, welcome to Old Guys Gentlemen's Flex Fountains Pens, episode number 72. And what I'm going to be covering today is the Mabie Todd Swan Snakeskin. It was made in about 1939, 1940. It's a celluloid pen with a really cool snakeskin design on it. Swan also puts a little symbol at the, what are these called, the finials? That's on this side. And occasionally they'll mark them. So this is an SM 205/80/83. Took a while to figure that one out. What that means is the 2 means that it's a 2 size nib, number 2. It's like a medium flex nib. The 0 means no band or a thin band. This one has a thin band. And no one seems to know what the 5 means. And the 83 was for the designation of the blue snakeskin. They have a whole bunch of numbers for the different colors, but 83 was blue snakeskin. Okay, so this was made in 1939, 1940, which makes it kind of interesting. Well, they call it a self-filler pen, but it's basically a, well, this is another unique feature. It's a lever filler, so there's a tube in here, and this squeezes it like all the other, lever fillers. But they made this bar out of ebonite, polished ebonite, and I think that looks cool against the color there. But as I was saying before, one of the interesting things is these are made in England, and in 1939, 1940, that was the beginning of World War II for them. And in 1939, there was the Blitz over the major cities, and luckily, because they had feared for their safety, they had shut down the administrative headquarters and a lot of the stocking area and moved it out of the city because it was destroyed, and then the main manufacture area was destroyed. I think they had some other factories somewhere else so they could keep up a minimal amount of production. But the government, I think it was the Board of Trade, got involved, and they limited this because it used metals and plastics. They limited to how many of these they could use. And it wasn't until 1946 that they were able to rebuild a factory and start to get back to normal. But this was probably made right before the Blitz, which I think adds a lot of cool history to it. The length of this capped is about 4 15/16, which is just a little bit shorter than I like. Posted, though, it's a good size. Posted, it's 6 1/8 inches. Okay, and width is about 7/16. So width is 7/16, and the section probably a little bit less than 3/8 of an inch, but it has a good feel to it. Slightly smaller than what I like, but it's a nice pen. The other thing I got to tell you about collecting these pens, since this is cellulite, there's 2 areas that end up getting a lot of pressure in the use. When the section is put in here, it's usually a friction fit. Although this one, sometimes they're screwed in, but I think this one just pulls out. But that puts pressure on here. So when you buy these, one of the first things you need to do is take a look at the threads very carefully. Sometimes running a fingernail over it will help. And this one came in nice and clean. Okay, but this one, you probably will not be able to see it, but I ended up having to repair this. It was a very fine crack, and I can feel it right there. If I bring this up, I don't know if you can see it. Sometimes if you look on the inside, I can't get a good light in there, but you can see some kind of material has been swabbed in there to help seal that crack. Now, the other problem is these get older. People will polish this stuff, and every time they do that, this material gets to become less. So less material, celluloid that tends to crack anyhow, and then you put pressure on it, especially if you post it. That's where a lot of the pressure comes from. And again, I think I've showed this before, but I have a little gel that I use. This one's getting a little bit too viscous, but it's celluloid duster chips mixed with MEK, and then I have a process where I can clean this thing up, put some MEK in there to wet stuff, and then I put more than I need of this stuff in there. You have to be careful with bubbles forming because they're hard to get rid of. And then you sand it down till it's flush, and when it cures, it'll retract, so it won't be even, and sometimes you have to put another layer on. And because this was so small, I would almost dare anybody to see that I actually did anything with it. With others, it's a lot more obvious. Okay, enough on that. So, how does this look if we write with it? I'll do my little test here. Use a really light hand to see how thin I can get. And by the way, how thin can I get it? Again, this is the Richard Binder fountain pen stroke width chart that you can find on his site. And I use it pretty regularly. Yeah, so I'm getting a triple extra fine needle point, and might as well just give it away here. I'm getting greater than triple broad. But let's see it in action. I mentioned this, but I'm using Lamy blue ink for this, which is a nice wet ink. So there you can see that line variation. And I love vintage nibs. It's not a wet noodle because it takes a little bit more pressure, but not too much pressure, and you get this beautiful line variation with real quick recovery. So the response rate on this is going to be pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I think if I used a drier ink, you'd see it close in a little bit even faster, but that's pretty good. So now how about the fox and the dog? Nice. I don't know if you saw that. So, this is a nice little pen. Got to be careful with posting it. If you buy them, you need to take a real close look on whether it's already cracked here or here. Great pen with a kind of a neat, World War II history story that goes with it. Not quite as cool as the lizard skins, but I'm glad I've got a collection of both of these guys, and I'm still trying to build it. So hope you got some value out of that, and until next time.